Hello, everyone. I'm back. Today, I'll be discussing two very famous philosophers. They're both from Germany. I'm going to be talking about some of the things that they agree on and some of the things that they disagree on. So, the first philosopher, his name is Schopenhauer, and his reading is on the sufferings of the world. Then, the second philosopher, his name is Nietzsche, and the name of his reading is called The Gay Science. Now, again, just like before, it's going to be a really brief discussion. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but just because of the fact that all these readings are so informative, and I'll do the best I can to try to put as much as I can on here. So with Schaffenauer and his reading on the sufferings of the world, his main point is that suffering and misfortune are the general rule of life. He says that pain is everywhere in the world because it's the norm, and happiness only happens when in the lack of pain. He argues that there is more evil than good in the world, and that's why we suffer more than we are happy. And he actually believes that we could never be happy forever because we will never be completely satisfied. And a really good point that he makes is that life is meaningless because we have is pain and suffering, and the only way that we find peace is when life is brought to an end by death. Now, I really, really, really love his point of views, for the simple fact that it's very relatable. I feel like this is something that we can relate to into today's world. We see it happening every day. We see more bad things happening than good. So I do agree with him that there is more evil than good in the world. We see people, including ourselves, suffering more than we are happy. And that's because of what he says when he says that we could never be completely satisfied. And the reason he says that is because even though we do fulfilled our desires, once that's fulfilled, we'll have the urge to have another desire. So it's going to be a desire on top of another one once it's fulfilled. So we'll never be completely happy as humans beings. And we hear it all the time that the only way that we'll find our complete peace and our true happiness is when we're brought to an end, when we pass. And some people, if they believe in God, they believe they're going to heaven. Some people just believe that in the universe, or just the fact, we all can agree that when we do pass, when our life do come to an end, that's when we find peace because we will no longer be suffering. So I really do like his reading a lot. I love his points that he claims, and all that is very interesting and is very relatable. Nietzsche, he believes that, so he declares that God is dead, and he does that in hope to shake the way people think in terms of religion. He believes that religion presents a false virtue that deepens the suffering of humans, as it prevents us from finding out the truth, because we rely on God, who we all know that is all good, and we should never ever question God. So that puts a limit on our way of thinking, our beliefs, on trying to really find the actual truth, because we depend on God and we rely on God and we trust God because of the fact that he's all good. So we shall never question him. That's how he feels. He feels like that's what we do. Now, he also says, he tries to use the example that we believe pain is bad and pleasure is good. But Nietzsche says that that's not true. That statement is completely false. Only because people choose pain sometimes. And if we know that pain is bad and pleasure is good, then we will always pick pleasure. We will always pick the good instead of picking the bad sometimes. And we actually find ourselves choosing bad over pain. And that's why he declares that statement to be false. And then he ties everything back to God and how we don't question God, so we don't really know. Now, he says that if all humans understand themselves through the idea that nothing will ever satisfy us, then we'll understand that we will never really find the absolute truth. Now, one thing that both philosophers agree on is that the idea that we live in a world that is driven by will. Schopenhauer believes that everything in life is driven by desires, our will, and all that must be fulfilled. Nietzsche also says that our will must be fulfilled in order for us to get what we want, which I believe is true. And another thing that they agree on is that they both question the idea of good and bad, and they agree that we get this from our moral beliefs, and that suffering is the one thing in life that is not avoidable. It's part of our human life for us to suffer. They both strongly agreed on that statement. Now Nietzsche feels like Schopenhauer limits his ideas. He thinks that Schopenhauer didn't have enough courage to investigate further to explain his views, and that's why he tries to take it further out and give a deeper understanding of his idea, because he actually got his Nietzsche actually got his ideas from Schopenhauer as well, but he feels like Schopenhauer said yes. He made a statement, but he didn't explain it. So that's the only thing that he doesn't agree with him. He feels like he just limits his research, and he doesn't investigate further to try to explain exactly in more detail what he is talking about. Now, that's the little brief explanation I have for you guys. I really hope that you guys enjoyed learning about both of these German philosophers. Again, there is very interesting, and just like before, I encourage you guys to just go and try to do your own research, or try to just learn about this, because it's very important for us to open up our mind to different point of views and just different perceptions of philosophy. So thank you so much for listening. You guys have a good night and a good day.